looking for him, throwing for him. It is caught, and he's in. Touchdown.
Welcome to week 10 of the NFL season. Week 10.
It's flying by, man.
Isn't that crazy? This is the Twentyman Huddle podcast. I am Tim Twentyman, your host, and joining me this week for the keys to the game element is Colton Pouncy. He does a great job, the Lions beat writer for The Athletic. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so the three keys every week to what's expected to be really a great game in Houston. I mean, you look at the Texans 6-3, and a lot of similarities, Colton, between these teams when I look at it. You know, coaches who are former players have that kind of players coach, mentality. Young rosters that are up and coming, two teams that look like they're going to be good for a long time. You excited about Sunday night?
Absolutely. This should be a good matchup. I love the way these teams are kind of built through the draft. Like you mentioned, the young rosters, the young talent they have. They play hard and they play for their head coaches, and I think they kind of take on the identity of Nico Ryan's over there and Dan Campbell here in Detroit. So they definitely kind of take after these teams.
Well, DeMeco Ryans, the defensive coordinator, obviously Dan Campbell with that offensive mindset, and that really leads to the first key for this one. I think what's going to be a terrific matchup is Detroit's number 1 ranked offense against the number 2 ranked overall defense in Houston. What a terrific matchup, two strength on strengths.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see if Will Anderson's able to go. I think he's been kind of missing practice, but they got some studs over there on that defense, man. They do a really good job defending the run, defending the pass. I think they only allow 281 yards per game, something like that. So they're a stingy defense, man. That's going to be tough to score against them. At the same time, I think this Lions offense, I mean, the weapons they have, Jameson Williams is going to be back. Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, the running backs. So Ben Johnson's really doing a great job leading this offense. And, I mean, if you're the Lions, I think you feel confident going against any defense in this league right now.
Yeah, and Jared Goff's on some kind of heater. Obviously, number 1 in the league in completion percentage, second to only Lamar Jackson in passer rating. But just some of the numbers for this Houston defense: second in total yards allowed, third in passing D, first in yards allowed per play, second in tackles for loss with 59. They're fourth in sacks with 29. They've defended 59 passes. That's second most. I mean, they are an aggressive, wide-9 defense. And I thought it was interesting when Ben Johnson talked this week that they haven't faced a scheme like this with how they're wide 9 with Donnell Hunter and Anderson that you talked about. What a terrific duo. But they've got guys inside that've got that, have got a bunch of sacks, a bunch of tackles for loss. They're aggressive at the linebacker spot. They're aggressive at the secondary. It's really a fun defense to watch, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, I think it starts with those two defensive ends when they're healthy and just peeling back and getting after the quarterback. They're a lot of fun to watch. But I think the linebackers do a really good job cleaning stuff up in the second level. They've got some really good cornerbacks. I love Stingley over there. He was a really good pick for them a couple years ago. Kamari Lassiter, the rookie that's kind of stepped in from Georgia. I liked him coming out of the draft this past April. So they got a lot of talent over there. They play hard. They play the whistle, and it's going to be a really tough matchup for sure.
Indoors, I think they have their red out there. Yep. It's going to be a crazy environment. It's going to be loud. But I love those strengths on strength matchups, and I think this is going to be, to me, the toughest test. Last week was a good test against the Green Bay defense in those elements. Detroit obviously passed the test. I think they've got a really big one this week too.
Yeah, for sure. Last week it felt like the game plan was to be a little bit more conservative, take care of the football, don't beat yourself essentially in a game like that with the elements not really working in your favor in a game like that. But this week, they'll have their full assortment of talent. Jameis going to come back for this one.
Think they take a shot?
I think so. I think
so too.
Why not?
I think Ben always has something. It's national TV, and when it's national TV and all the eyes are watching, those are the games that I love to go into with Ben because he's going to have something, some gadget play, some trick play, something up his sleeve, and he's going to take a couple shots too. It should be fun.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move over to the other side of the ball. It comes to the second key, and it's really a pass rush for Detroit Lions. We didn't see it last week. Obviously, this week, huge news, made the trade for Za'Darius Smith. Now, at 32 years old, Za'Darius was supposed to be on his bye week in Cleveland this week. So Detroit's given him a couple days off. He won't be at the Meyer Performance Center until Friday. Is that enough time to turn around and play? We'll see. I don't know if it is. What do you think? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think credit the Lions for giving him some time off because it's tough to come in. He was supposed to have the bye and then got traded, obviously. So, I mean, love the move to it was a classy move to kind of give him some time off there. But he is a veteran. He's played a lot of football in this league. I think for a position that he plays, which is just get after the quarterback, I think maybe you don't need the full assortment of the playbook yet. You can kind of come in and do some damage just on a limited basis if they want to just toss him out there for a few plays, but if not, they want to give him the full week off to rest. I would understand that too. But if they do put him out there, I think he can have an impact because he's a really productive player, and he has been in this league for a long time. He was a guy that I always thought would be a good fit for this team when Hutchinson went down. You're kind of looking for some trade options, and they're able to get it done and bring in a guy like that can help you for the stretch run. So if he plays, I think he can kind of do some damage, but I guess we'll see.
And you look at this Houston team, and you look at what the New York Jets were able to do to them last week, Thursday. 8 sacks on C.J. Stroud, 11 times they hit him. You look at Houston's offensive line overall and just their offense, 31 sacks allowed. That's second most in the NFL. So the Lions get, Josh Pascal back. I think that's huge this week. And I think even if they don't have Za'Darius, I would fully expect, Colton, I don't know if you agree, that we'll see much more from this Lions pass rush against a Texans team that's struggled to protect C.J. Stroud really all year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Aaron Glenn is, he loves the blitz. I think since Hutchinson went down, they ranked towards the top of the league in blitz rate. So they don't really need the defensive, the whole defensive line to create pressure and get after the quarterback. Aleem McNeil, he had 7 pressures against the Packers last week, so he can get it done at any point. DJ Reader's disruptive in there. Levi, you look at the linebackers, Trevor Nowaski's kind of giving them some juice there. And then the secondary with Brian Branch, he can come off the edge and kind of blitz for you too. So you can do some cool things with this defense that Aaron Glenn has right now.
And you can cover behind it. And that's the key, right? I mean, this secondary is so improved. That safety duo of Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph is, to me, the best in the league right now. So that's the important thing. You don't just blitz to blitz. You blitz knowing that you can cover behind it. And I think Aaron Glenn's done a good job of masking some of the deficiencies that they've had in the pass rush without Aiden Hutchinson, without Marcus Davenport, and he's been creative blitzing that way. It's been a good duo. And all right, our third key is something that you talked about, that you mentioned you wanted to talk about is the red zone. And I think, to me, in football, there are 3 statistics that are more important than anything else: turnovers, red zone, and third down. And when this red zone, when you look at it, and we talked about the numbers for this Houston defense, right? They jump out, they're terrific, but there's an anomaly there, isn't it?
There really is. They're second in yards per game allowed, but I think they're 30th, the third worst in the league in terms of red zone defense and giving up touchdowns.
How does that even make sense? How are you good at everything else, and then you're giving touchdowns away in the red zone at a 70% clip, Colton?
Yeah, it's pretty odd. You don't really see that too much. Whereas the Lions, they do go some yards, but they really tighten up in that end. They're the 4th best red zone defense. So kind of flipped a little bit in a weird way. But in terms of the Texans defense, I think it really depends on your cornerbacks and can you challenge in that area of the field, because you really asked to play a lot of man coverage. It's one-on-one, so can you win your responsibilities? I think the Lions have done that defensively. Texans, they kind of win, outside the 20s. But they've been beat there inside the 20, and it seems like the Lions, obviously, a really productive red zone offense can take advantage of that if you're not careful there. Yeah,
to your point, I saw this on X from one of the Houston guys. I think they've allowed 19 passing touchdowns this year. They allowed 17 all of last year.
Wow.
And so, I mean, despite the numbers and despite them being third in passing yards, the touchdowns, the red zone, to your point, is where they're giving up a lot of those scores. Detroit, 63.3% inside the red zone, and that includes that 1 for 7 in Tampa Bay. So I think it's a good point by you is to watch what happens in the red zone. That's going to be the key. That's where Houston's allowed some opportunities. Detroit's obviously been really good there in 7 of their 8 games, and that's going to be huge. Can you convert those plays? Can you get those 4 extra points? Whoever's forced to kick field goals is probably in this kind of game against this offense is probably going to be behind the 8 ball. So I think it's a good point by you. Big key to this one. Those are the 3 keys to Sunday night's game, which should be fun. He is Colton Pouncy. Thanks so much for joining me. You can follow your stuff on Twitter at
Colton_Pouncy.
Colton_Pouncy. There it is. We'll be back. Welcome back to the Twentyman Huddle podcast, and I am very happy to welcome in Brock Wright, tight end. I figured it was Houston week, so why not get a Houston native, right? Cypress, Texas. How far is that from Houston?
About 30 minutes from downtown.
Okay, so suburb of Houston. You grew up a giant Texans fan?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, my whole childhood. Loved going to games growing up.
So the family at Sunday night, prime time, how many family you got going here? Your Dad got a suite, I hear.
Yeah, that's right. So my parents are going to be hosting probably about 20 people, and then who knows how many more are going to be there. You probably know over 100 people at the game, so it's going to be really cool.
How fun is that going to be? Obviously, just getting there. Now, you guys have commitments at the hotel, but you guys get a little bit of window there to see family and stuff. Is it always fun for players going back home and seeing family and friends, people you don't get a whole lot of time to see during the season? Just how fun are these types of weekends for you guys?
It's really fun. I think it's more fun for my parents because they travel to every game, and so when we get ones like these where they can just drive to it, it's so much easier on them. But we're staying real close to where my brother and his wife live, so we'll be able to see them, and my parents are going to come down and just get to spend time with them, so it's really special.
And just playing on Sunday Night Football, obviously you guys are 7-1. You're talked about this team as favorites for the Super Bowl in the NFC, the greatest show on turf since the greatest show on turf. How much do you love these night primetime games, or is it tough as a player because you've got to wait around, sit around, do all that stuff, or do you as a player like these opportunities?
Yeah, the waiting's the hardest part, but I think when you get to the pregame, you kind of feel the energy of those night games, and it's something special. I think there's a little bit more energy in the stadium. You kind of get a sense that there's a little bit more to it. So there's always a little bit more juice behind those.
So how much of the family are going to be Lions fans? How much of the family are going to be Texans fans? Is there any
all Lions?
All Lions fans.
Lions.
That's good.
Yeah.
There's no rogue uncle that's a diehard. No,
not a chance.
So you were one of the top tight ends in the country coming out. Obviously went to Notre Dame, had a terrific career there. I'm just curious, do you guys now who kind of missed out on the NIL stuff, do you look back and you're like, holy cow, if I was playing college football nowadays, because you were one of the elite tight ends in that class. I'm curious, do you guys think back of what it could be like in college now?
Kind of funny, but I don't know. It seemed like our stipend back then was more money than we knew what to do with. So I don't know. Maybe, money would have corrupted us a little bit. So I'm kind of glad I didn't have to deal with all that nonsense.
I want to take you back to the offseason. Obviously you're a restricted free agent, and San Francisco comes calling, right? You sign, a restricted deal there, 3 years, $12 million. Did you think at that point that you were heading out west, that you were a 49er?
No, I mean, I had hopes that I would stay here, and I felt confident that the team wanted me back enough. And, I was able to talk to Coach, and he asked if I wanted to stay here, and that was always the goal. So, but when it came down to the last day and it was kind of clock was ticking, I started thinking, oh, this could be a real deal. So, but no, I'm happy with how it turned out.
Obviously, playing in the top offense in the league, what is it like playing under Ben Johnson as an offensive coordinator?
It's great. I mean, every week he comes up with something fun, and just getting to learn from him and see how he attacks defenses week in and out is cool. I think it helps all of us grow as players, and just it's fun to be a part of this offense. Yeah. We get to do a lot of fun, cool stuff. So. Yeah, it's special.
And there's a prerequisite to play in this offense, and no block, no rock. You hear that term for the wide receivers, but guys like Amon-Ra, yourself, Sam, I mean, do you love playing with a group of guys that it just seems like such an unselfish bunch? I've never heard guys talking about, get me the rock, I need it. You got wide receivers blocking for running backs. You got two running backs who respect each other and could probably be number one running backs on 28 other teams in this league, but are here and love being do you love that aspect of it, and how much is important? Like, if you don't block in this offense, you're not playing, are you?
No,
that's a prerequisite, isn't it?
Right, but I think that's what sets really good offenses apart. That's how you create explosives with people blocking downfield after catch, and the receivers getting involved in the run game. Our receivers are the best at that, so it's fun to see them do that, and it kind of it elevates everyone else's game too. You want to play harder for the guy next to you, so I think that's what it takes to be a really good offense.
Steve Hyden seems like a pretty serious dude. I mean, that's what he did too. Like, he was that blocking type tight end. What's it like being in that room, and how much has he helped your game?
He's helped my game tremendously when it comes to technique, and just learning from a guy who did it for so long. He's helped the whole group, and we've grown a lot together. Love our group of guys, so it's a lot of fun working with them.
This just seems like it's such a fun offense to be a part of right now. Have you ever been around a quarterback that's as hot as Jared Goff is right now? It just he has such an understanding of Ben's system. It seems like knows where guys are, doesn't force the football, finds the open guy. Have you ever been part of kind of a quarterback who's been on a streak like this?
No, it's fun. It's cool to watch. It's when everything's clicking for them. It's something special.
And just that tight end room, too. Seems like a really close-knit kind of group. You know, Sam obviously had a terrific, rookie season. You've been a huge part of this offense now for a few years. Zylstra's, come up, been doing some good things. How much do you like that room? It seems like it's got a lot of versatility to it.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, Shane and I came in. We were the same rookie class. And so it's great having him back after he was injured last year, and getting to see him out on the field and contribute. And then James coming in that following year, and then Sam. I mean, it's just an awesome group of guys, and we all elevate each other's game a bit. So, and also just good guys to hang out with.
What jumps out about Houston? Do you look at some of the numbers? Number 2 defensively, number 3 against the pass, limiting teams under 200 passing yards per game. Just what's the challenge Sunday night?
Yeah, they have a great defense. They're good at holding teams to a few points. So got great edge guys who we're going to be matched up with a lot. So it's just one of those games, on the road you have to be really technically sound. Just focus in on the fundamentals because it's a little bit harder with noise and things like that. So just hone in on that stuff, be clean on our game plan, and I think things will take care of themselves.
How big was a game like last week? Outdoors, and a lot was made of that. I didn't really think too much of it, but the rain and everything else, and just to handle it the way you guys did, was that just a kind of another notch for this offense? Like, we can play anywhere. I think Jared had the chameleon comment, which is probably going to be a shirt somewhere at some point. But it just to play a game, such a clean game like that outdoors, is it just kind of another notch? Like, hey, if we got to go somewhere in January, that we can handle this, we can do it, and it's no big deal.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to put it. It's chameleon. You just have to be able to adapt. If you got to be able to run the ball when you can run the ball, throw the ball when you can throw the ball. So, like we said, that's what takes offenses to the next level, is being able to do it all. And I think no matter where you're playing, what elements, you got to figure out, how to get after that defense.
So we've seen Amon-Ra throw a touchdown pass. We have seen David Montgomery throw a touchdown pass. Who's got the best arm in that tight end room? Is it you? Is it Sam?
It's
not
me.
It's not you?
It's probably Sam.
Is it really?
Probably Sam or Shane.
No? What were you growing up? Were you always a tight end? Were you always
I started playing tight end in middle school.
Okay.
Yeah. Played running back and fullback growing up.
How fun was that?
I loved toting the rock. That was the best. I mean, those are the best memories, Little League football.
Yeah.
Getting run at every play. So.
Well, it looks like everybody's having fun in this offense. You guys are off to a terrific start, 7-1. Big game, national TV audience Sunday night in your hometown, in front of your home fans, hoping to get a touchdown in front of the home.
Hey, that'd be awesome. But
Ben seems to work that kind of stuff in too, though. There's nothing special planned, nothing.
I don't know yet.
He's staying coy. I like it. Don't give away the plan. But something tells me you will be part of a big play Sunday night in your hometown. It should be fun to watch. It'll be a great matchup. Good luck to you. Thanks for joining the podcast. Appreciate it, Brock.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Welcome back to the Twentyman Huddle podcast, and now we are going to venture out into Houston and get a close-up look at the Houston Texans. I'm joined by Drew Dougherty. He does a great job. He's been covering the Texans since 2009. They're TV host. You can catch him on Texans.com. He is very well connected, everything Houston. Drew, thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Tim. Good to see you again. Hope you're doing great. And boy, you guys are coming to town with a football team. That's no joke.
We're coming to town with a football team, but you've got a football team too, with obviously the additions that you made last year with C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson and making the playoffs. This is a fun matchup. It's two young teams, mostly young, that are kind of up and coming in this league. But Drew, let's start with the injuries, because I think that's a big storyline there in Houston heading into this one. Obviously, Nico Collins has been out for a couple weeks. He's eligible to come back. What's the status of him? And then the other big one's probably Will Anderson Jr. dealing with that ankle injury, missed practice Wednesday. What's that looking like on the injury front with Houston?
Yeah, the two big names you just brought up. You've heard good things externally about Nico Collins, but you always wonder, well, the guy didn't practice on Wednesday, so what will it be? You think he's going to be out there Sunday, but you don't know. So you always hold reserve and reserve judgment for that one. And then Will Anderson, we saw him get banged up with the ankle on Thursday Night Football about a week ago. So we'll see on those two. But we did see limited participation from linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair. He is a captain. He is a real motor on this defense. It's a big, big returnee. He had been out for a few weeks, so that's a good thing that he's back. You also have Jimmy Ward. He's a safety. He's a captain. He practiced as well as a limited participant on Wednesday. He'd missed a lot of time with a groin. So you get those two back coming off of IR, at least designated to return. They sort of got their window activated. Was defensive end Jerry Hughes. He's a complimentary piece. He can still give you some juice here and there, and this pass rush is going to need it if Will Anderson is not able to go. And then you got some more cornerback depth with a guy you guys are familiar with in Jeff Okudah. So there's been some good news, but you really want the great news with those two names that you start with, and we'll see on them. But yeah, don't cry for the Texans because it's that time of year, as you know. Everybody's injured. You guys can talk. Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, that's everybody's going through it in their own form or fashion. So it's the league. It's what you got to do. And nobody's going to be using injuries as an excuse for what happens.
You know, a lot of those names on the defensive side of the ball, and credit to D'Amico Ryans and what the guys have done who've stepped into that role. I mean, the number 2 total defense or number 3 against the pass. They've really maintained through those injuries. And you know, obviously Lions fans know Donnell Hunter, you know, very, very well from his time with Minnesota. He's been a great addition too. Just what is it about that defense? What is it that is it D'Amico Ryans' scheme? Is it just, you know, why is that side of the football been so consistently good really all year long, Drew?
They've been excellent up front. They really have. You brought up Danielle Hunter. He leads the NFL in pressures. He's getting to the quarterback, and his sack totals have gone up a little bit over the last few weeks, but he's been everything that the Texans have wanted in how they signed him this year. You guys, you'll know all about him after all those years in Minnesota and seeing him twice a season. He's been excellent. Will Anderson, I mean, he was the defensive player of the month, and then he gets injured, you know, the night that he gets named defensive player of the month. But then on the interior, names you don't hear about as much, tackles like Tim Settle. He's been excellent since he came here. Foley Fatukasi, he's been doing some nice things. And then behind those two big guns at defensive end, you got a guy in Danico Autry who had 11.5 sacks last year. He missed the first 6 games of the season with a suspension, came back, has settled in, and then he has the 2 sacks the other night. That's his 3rd game back. He's a very, very important piece, and you're so happy to see him come back when you know there is some uncertainty up front. And then I didn't even mention Derek Barnett. The guy's a former first-round pick. He's been excellent with the Texans since they claimed him off waivers late in the season from Philadelphia last year. So they've been able to get after the quarterback and win those one-on-one matchups. They'll blitz at times, obviously, but they're not relying solely on the blitz to cause those pressures. So they've really been kind of the driving engine of this defense, and especially so in home games this year. We can get into that a little bit later if you want.
Yeah, and that's going to be such a huge matchup because obviously Detroit comes to town with one of the best offensive lines in football. Penei Sewell, Taylor Decker, really 2 great bookend. Obviously Frank Ragnow is one of the best centers in the league, so that should be a terrific matchup from everything you've talked about with the depth and talent that the Texans have up front. But over on the other side of the football, and you talk about the offensive line with the Texans, you know, I saw some of the press conferences with D'Amico, you know, early this season, and I think the first 3 questions were about the offensive line. And obviously with the loss to the Jets last week, 8 sacks allowed, 11 hits on C.J. Stroud. They're second in the NFL in sacks allowed with 31. What's just really been the issue there? And is that the concern heading into this week? And really the last 2 months of the season is getting better play out of that offensive line.
Yeah, you said it. And so has D'Amico Ryans, so has C.J. Stroud, so have all those guys on the line, the rest of the offense. They've got to protect better. You know, that's no secret. Nobody's speaking out of turn here. You can't allow your quarterback, especially one like C.J. Stroud, still young, to get hit the way he's been hit. So one of the guys who was playing left guard, Kenyon Green, he started the season there. He's a former first-round pick. He's out for a while, maybe even the season. We don't know. But he's not practiced. He has a shoulder injury. He left the game. In his place, we saw Kendrick Green, but also a guy who had started to take some more reps there at the left guard spot, Jarrett Patterson. He was a rookie last year out of Notre Dame, and he started the first 7 games at center in 2023 before he got injured and had to hang it up for the rest of the season. But he's he filled in pretty capably at left guard when we saw him, and then he got concussed. So he's coming back from concussion, but he was a full participant on Wednesday. So whether it's him, whether it's Kendrick Green, it's going to be somebody different up front, but it's got to change no matter whether it's just the left guard or the rest of the whole unit, and not just the offensive line. Everybody's got to be better because you can't sustain. You can't just keep crossing your fingers and thinking something good is going to happen when your quarterback is getting battered like he's been.
You mentioned Texans and playing at home. The Lions are obviously excited to get back indoors after playing in the rain and the cold and the wet in Green Bay. I see the picture behind you there of the guys decked out in the red. It's going to be a red out. What's the atmosphere going to be like there at NRG Stadium in Houston Sunday night for a national TV game?
They'll be amped up. It's going to be a lot of fun. I know there will be a lot of Detroit Lion fans there as well. They travel well, especially lately, but they're going to be pumped up. Like you mentioned, it's Battle Red Day or Battle Red Night, and they'll have the new helmets. They've got horns instead of the regular bullhead, but they're going to be pumped up. I mean, this defense has been so much better at home through the 4 games. Now, they haven't seen an offense of the caliber of Detroit's, but if you look at what they've done to opposing quarterbacks, they've held them to about 45% completion rate. They're averaging about 3.5 sacks a game, the Texans are. So they've done a really good job. And yes, they haven't played, the best of quarterbacks, but think about who they have gone against. Trevor Lawrence was the first overall pick. They had him completing less than 50. The last time out, Anthony Richardson, they broke him. I mean, he tapped out. We saw the national news the last week. He got benched right after that, and he was having a tough time. But you also went against Josh Allen. The guy's a perennial MVP candidate, and you held him to 9 of 30 passing. So they've done good work against quarterbacks. Now, it's different. I'll give you all that. I mean, that's a good Lions defense offense coming to town, and defense. But the Texans defense, I think, is going to be ready to rock, and they'll be up for the challenge. And it's a mighty one for sure.
1 or 2 guys, I know you've already mentioned a couple, but maybe that Lions fans aren't familiar with, who could really impact this game come Sunday night.
Yeah, keep your eyes on tight end Dalton Schultz. He's kind of starting to heat back up. A lot of the early targets this season went to Nico Collins, justifiably so. He was leading the NFL in receiving yards. Stephon Diggs was getting implemented and integrated into the offense. He's out for the rest of the season, so you won't see him. So we've seen Dalton Schultz get his chances. So he's a guy on offense I'd keep your eyes on. And I mentioned Autry earlier in the segment. Watch out for him. He can play. He's nasty. He's a guy that general manager, executive vice president Nick Caserio, this offseason, during the season when he was coming back, he labeled him a real pain in the ass, an ass kicker. It's pretty strident words from Caserio. And Autry, he's a good one. I can't wait to see what he does.
Is this big too just because the losses to Green Bay, Minnesota, obviously beat Chicago, but you don't want to go 1-3 against the North. Obviously, it's the division, is key for any team, and I know these are intra-conference, so or interconference, so it's not huge in the grand scheme of things, but is there anything to that, not wanting to lose, 3 times within one division?
There might be something to that. I think on a grander scale, it's that awful taste they've got in their mouth after last week on national TV looking so poorly and knowing that they're not that team. They're better than what they put out there the other night. Now they got to fix things and they got to play better. And I think they can. I know they think they can. So they get a second chance. They get to do it on Sunday Night Football. And they want to beat a good team. They just want to get back on the winning track. But I think, sure, they probably want to do better against the AFC North than they have. I mean, it's a rough tumble division, and man, that's some pretty serious stuff. But they're 6-3. They want to get to 7-3 and kind of keep that stranglehold on their own division, the AFC South, because you saw the Colts and what they've been doing. And a couple of weeks ago, when the Colts came to town, had the Colts won that game, technically the Texans and Colts would have been tied atop the AFC South. But that win and then everything we've seen since, it's kept that little gap in between the two.
All right, final one here is the Texans stay atop the AFC North. They get to 7-3. They really control their own destiny and by beating Detroit. If what happens, what's the biggest key for Drew Dougherty for the Texans to come away with a win at home Sunday night in front of a national audience?
Got to be able to run, and they have been able to run with Joe Mixon. You got to keep getting turnovers and takeaways and limit yours, but you're tied for 8th in the NFL in turnover differential. Lions are tied for 1st. So you got to be better than them, and that's a tough task. But above all else, you've been solid in the first half as far as scoring points. You got to get way better after the intermission, because aside from the win over New England a few weeks back, the Texans have basically averaged about 6-7 points in the second half of games this year. You can't do that against a team like this. You've got to score more, and you got to limit them, and you got to make things tough on Jared Goff.
Now, Drew, what a fun matchup. Who would have thought at the beginning of the year, like Houston and Detroit, 2 first-place teams, huge matchup, maybe 2 teams that could meet in the Super Bowl in February. They really are that good. It should be a fun matchup. Strength-on-strength offense versus this terrific defense. It'll be a fun matchup, a red-out national TV. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure you are too. Thanks for joining me so much. I appreciate the time, and I'll look for you in the press box. Make sure I say hello.
Can't wait, Tim. Good to see you. Travel safe, and we'll see you Sunday night, man.